You're listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Well, hi. Thanks for joining me today. I want to welcome you into this episode that is all about procrastination. And it's kind of ironic because I'm hearing the pitter patter of my little one's feet upstairs telling me that they're waking up, which tells me that I have apparently procrastinated on taping this until the very last minute. But thankfully, my husband's home today. He's got this. But if it sounds like there's things happening around me, there are. But this is a topic that I started to mention in the last episode about all the work from home, mompreneur stress that we have as we're heading back to school. And then I said, we really need to do another episode on this. So today I want to go more in depth on procrastination, indecision, prioritization, how they're all linked, how EFT can help you with them, all the things. So, and if you happen to watch these in video format on YouTube, you can see I stay true to form. I'm like, I don't get made up for these. And they got like my workout hair tendrils flying and, it is what it is. But I like to honor the fact that this is a podcast. It's mainly audio. And I also like to provide a video format just so that you can see more of just the real life, what it looks like to just hop on and tape something and bring it to you. So here I am. Now, I think that everybody I've ever met in my life would say that at some point or another, they've procrastinated on something. Am I right? Some people will call themselves procrastinators. Some people will just say that they procrastinated on a certain thing. And I think that's an important distinction. I think it's really important not to identify yourself as a procrastinator because we usually kind of self-fulfill those prophecies. And I don't think that most people want to be a procrastinator. So you can start by not calling yourself one. It's okay to identify the places where you are procrastinating, but not to make yourself a procrastinator. And I think it's also important to realize that the things that you procrastinate about. So usually procrastination tends to occur when things are tedious, or when they don't bring you pleasure. Sometimes it's just, it's not positive. It's not something that feels positive or good to do, or it takes a lot of effort. Maybe it's a really big task and you just don't even know where to start on it. So you keep pushing it aside. Now, people also procrastinate on things that can be really quite simple. So there's a large spectrum. Sometimes it's just busy work. And you just keep pushing it aside because it seems like it's something that's easy or fast, or I do that later, whatever. Or, things like laundry, dishes, stuff like that. Again, that falls back under the category of not really being very pleasurable, but needing to get done. I know I procrastinate on digital organization. I have so much data and stuff that's always kind of like floating around on my computer. And it's not until my computer starts slowing down so much that I'm like, oh, gotta like clean the desktop or file this or file that. It's the new version of having a messy office, really. And thankfully, I have mastered my physical space pretty well. And I'm able to keep my actual office physical space pretty neat, tidy, and organized. But I have not yet mastered keeping the digital space as organized. Thankfully, my assistant is helping me with that a good bit, and I'm quite happy to hand off as much of that as possible. It's not my genius zone. It's not an area where I find pleasure, and I just let stuff pile up. I'm very thankful that with today's technology, we can usually search and find things with a keyword or, a date or something like that, which makes having to organize things digitally a lot less tedious. kind of just throw things in a folder and make sure they're saved and find them later somehow by the grace of digital technology. Thank goodness. So yeah, we all need a little bit more volition, a little bit more intentional behavior in order to follow through in the areas where we procrastinate. And I'm going to kind of be presenting this from my viewpoint, which also includes ADHD, which can be another really big way to get distracted more easily and to act on impulse more than following through with the intentional behavior. But that really just means you have to be more conscious and you have to find better ways to manage and cope. It's not something that I wish to use anymore in my life as an excuse. I want to take responsibility because that's the only way that I can actually change. If we don't take responsibility for our behaviors and it's just never our fault, then we can't really make the change that we say we want to make now, can we? So, I think there's examples all over the place of times when procrastination has happened. Some are humorous, and it's, I don't like the way that procrastination gets treated like it's not a big deal, because it really does keep us from achieving some of the biggest dreams we have in our life and from putting things aside that we are capable of doing and we want to do and we are avoiding for whatever reason. And there's so many different memes and jokes and things. I've always found humor in the quote that says, I used to procrastinate, but I got so good at it. Now I procrastinate. But I think it's not positive for us to basically be like patting ourselves on the back and being like, yeah, I'm procrastinating. That's cool. Everybody does it. I don't know. It's not a good thing, people. So let's figure out how we can better manage it so that we can accomplish more of the amazing things that we're here to do, which allows us to feel more purposeful and more fulfilled and just better, right? Like you don't feel good when you're talking about, I'm procrastinating. You've got that thing, whatever it is, at least in the back of your head, and it's harping at you that it needs to get done at some point, whether it's now or later. And until it's done, it's going to be kind of fogging things up in there for you. So, let's get it done. Now, some things like my digital organization issue are things that are constant. So they're always needing to be done, or laundry or dishes. So we just have to find ways to kind of bite the bullet on them. A cool example of procrastination, I think, is the Oxford Dictionary, which was a publishing contract that was expected to take 10 years. And it started in 1879. Now, 2 years into the contract, those who were responsible for writing that dictionary had only gotten to the word ant. So there's still 25 and a half letters to go, and they're 2 years into a 10-year contract. The dictionary actually ended up taking 49 years. It was 1879 to 1928 when they finally got to the last Z word in it and finished it. Now, I can only imagine how many things and how many words came to be in those 49 years that didn't exist when that first began being written. And so the dictionary is a great example of something that is never done, because they completed it, it was published, and then they basically went right back to the letter A and started going through it again to update and to add and so on and so forth. And that's a process that has never stopped because words are continuously being added to the English language. So that's one of those things where it just has to continue being a work in progress. But some things we can get done and then move on from. And you're never going to find yourself procrastinating on the things that you enjoy in life. Nobody's procrastinating binging Netflix or eating ice cream or having a glass of wine or playing a video game on their phone. Nobody's like, oh, I'll put that off until later or next week or after I do this other thing that I actually need to do that actually aligns with my goals and doesn't set me back from them. That doesn't happen. And when you have ADHD and there's that inconvenient struggle that can happen with the impulsiveness and the distraction, that adds to it. But it's a choice whether you give into that or whether you choose to embrace all of the ways that it can help you be creative and solve the problem instead of the ways that it keeps you from accomplishing the goal, which is what I try to do. So again, I don't think that thinking about yourself as a procrastinator is the best idea. And also, when you're thinking about the things that you're procrastinating on, thinking that you should do them never really helps either, because most people aren't interested in doing the shoulds. So you have to have a reason why you want to get it done. Maybe there's a kind of a light at the end of the tunnel or a reward that you can give yourself for finishing that thing that you keep putting off. And environment can really play into whether you're procrastinating or not. And also what you allow to distract you. When I really need to focus in on something, especially if it needs to be done seated in my office using something like a computer, that do not disturb feature on my laptop is key. Like, I don't want to be pinged by anything. I don't want to see text messages coming through. I do the same thing on my phone and I just go for it. And because, like a text comes through or you see an email pop up and then all of a sudden it's, I'll just check that real quick. And it's like, we want that dopamine hit. It feels good to see that, somebody mentioned us on social media or they commented on something or they've left us an email message or we just got an offer for a percentage off of something that we want to buy or all the things that bombard us throughout the day that we really have to be conscious about tuning out if we want to accomplish things. Otherwise, there's rabbit hole after rabbit hole we can go down. And then we've gotten to the end of a time that was supposed to be productive. I know for me as, a mompreneur, maybe I get a babysitter or my husband allows me that sounds awful. Allows me. That's not how it works. It's like he's handling things so that I can get stuff done. And, but I've said, hey, I'm going to work from this time till that time. And then at the end of what was supposed to be work time, which tends to be a generous way of describing the intent of doing something, but the action clearly being lacking, I haven't accomplished it. And sure, maybe I've gotten some busy work done. Maybe I cleaned up my email inbox or, got some back to school clothes purchased for the kids or whatever, but I didn't do the thing. And then, you end up really feeling this general malaise of not having achieved anything substantial. And that sucks too. So when you get into those positions, or at least when I did, kind of realized that we battle ourselves on two different fronts: prioritization and procrastination. So in the event that I, have that work time where I don't actually get the work I set out to do done, was I prioritizing it? No, like clearly it was at the bottom of my list, not at the top, because I know it's important for me to accomplish, but maybe it's not terribly urgent. Or I haven't, self-imposed anything to create urgency. So then I let the excuses come in and I allow them to make it okay for me to put it off. Am I procrastinating in that situation? Yes. And we need to get clear about what that is too, because it can be prioritization and procrastination. It can be one or the other. It can also be both. And there's a really fine line between prioritizing and procrastinating. And so I've spent some time kind of working on permeating myself with some conclusions to tell the two apart. And I invite you to do the same, because I think it's actually really important to ask yourselves these questions when things are coming up that you're looking at as just procrastinating. So are you delaying or are you arranging? See, procrastination ends up coming up in, you delay something, you postpone something, you dawdle, you do some other busy work instead. But when you prioritize, you're itemizing, you're figuring out how to work it out and get it done, and you're arranging. Now, either way, whether you find that you're a procrastinator or procrastinating, I should say, or, oh my gosh, I just said you're a procrastinator when I said not to call yourself one, and I just used the word should. Man, whoo. Okay. Whether you're procrastinating or whether you're prioritizing, I'm going to catch myself here and I'm going to call myself out, then they're intentional. They're intentional behaviors. And I mean that in the sense that you're doing it. It's not being done to you. Okay. It would be not helpful to believe that life simply is just happening to you. Okay. I love that life happens for us, and life certainly happens. There's things happening all of the time, but we have the choice, even if it's just in the way that we are parenting our thoughts about what is occurring, to choose. We get to choose to allow things to get in the way and prevent us from getting done the task at hand. And we have to accept that we've decided to do it that way, instead of making excuses or arguments that it happened to us, it was done to us. It wasn't. So are you allowing it to happen to you so that you can give yourself an excuse to do what you want to anyway? That's something to really be aware of. Okay. Just super important. And then it's the question of, with procrastination, is it a problem that you're not doing it now? Is it okay to do it later? Sometimes it is. But, procrastination inherently is putting something off for a later time. And urgency isn't the key when you're doing that. And a lot of people who procrastinate find themselves doing things at the last minute. I know that if I have had a work period of time where I have not gotten done the things I set out to do, that last 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, it's like a switch pops on. And all of a sudden I'm like, phew, getting it done, gonna get it done. I'm running out of time. And I get a lot done in that last little bit, but I end up frustrated. Like, why did I not get even more done over that longer period that I had? And instead just kept putting things off. So we have to identify what's important to ourselves and then decide the order that we're going to give those things our valuable time and our undivided attention. Because procrastination is about just driving down to the bottom of that list. What is not important to you? When you procrastinate, you might even just come up with some kind of like a loose frame of time that you're going to get things done. And at other times, like you leave the things that you don't want to deal with to a later time, which means that they really will not get done at all in many cases. So when we prioritize, we bump it back up to that top of our list, what's important to us. And then we decide that is going to get our attention. And we get kind of like bulletproof about the distractions and invasions and detours from doing that. So you have to decide when it comes to the prioritization or the procrastination that you're dealing with, which you're embracing. And also whether you're doing it for the right reasons, the reasons that align with your highest potential, the most aligned outcome, whatever it might be, depending on what you're weighing and looking at. Now, make sure that when you procrastinate, it's because it's a lesser priority and not just because it's something you don't want to deal with. That's really important. And make sure that when you prioritize something that might be down the list further, that it's not because it's something you're procrastinating instead. Okay. Now, again, I feel like the same with calling yourself a procrastinator. Procrastinating ends up kind of coming with the thought that it's something that you need to do, but you're failing to do. And then that has a real feeling of negativity attached to it. So because of that, when you don't call it right, and you're calling it procrastination when really it's not being prioritized or vice versa, then there can be a real emotional toll that comes with procrastination. And that's part of the reason why I think it's so important. And I don't think it's something that we should just like brush off like, oh yeah, just procrastinating, whatever, I'll get to it. And just being real casual about procrastinating, because there really is a lot of emotional pain that comes with not learning how to get things done and accomplish what you want to in your day, your week, your month, your year, your life. So sometimes it comes down to needing to reframe things like that. Sometimes it comes down to needing to chunk down larger tasks. I mean, if you're dealing with a huge project that has multiple elements to it and you're just not starting because you're like, oh my God, I don't even know where, then you need to get clear. You need to sit down and like, I'll take a notepad and I'll just start thinking, okay, what needs to be done? And then that involves this and that involves that. And okay, so, but where do I actually need to start in order to get to there? Okay, so I need to do this. And then it's the same as I said before, when you're making a list for the day of what you need to do, like 3 things, especially 3 things that you would normally procrastinate on, that you put on there to actually get done, man, that's going to make such a difference for you. And it might just be one part of that really large project. But when you look at it as a whole, you're never going to get to it. It's big, it's scary, it's monstrous. It feels impossible, unachievable, and like you can't get anywhere with it today. So why bother, right? But when you chunk it down and you realize I can do this one step out of 50 maybe that need to be done, and I can get it done today. And maybe I can do steps 2 and 3 tomorrow and steps 4 through 10 the next day. And in a week or 2, I've done this thing that I'm otherwise maybe never going to do, or that's going to take me so much longer than it needs to because I am dragging my feet and dreading it. It's not a good feeling. Now, EFT is actually a great way to work on procrastination because it calms the nervous system. And that can really help us to be more productive and to make more breakthroughs and to beat procrastination ultimately. Now, I've talked about it before about how cortisol can be lowered so significantly with EFT. The average amount, like if you're tapping and you go through a few rounds of tapping, your cortisol is going to lower from anywhere between 24% and 50%. Usually, the average after like 10 minutes of tapping for the majority of people is around 43%, which is huge. So if you were doing talk therapy with a therapist, there's no significant cortisol reduction. So you might work through some things, but you're not getting that stress reduction in your body in a scientific way. If you were to take a nap, you're going to get a cortisol reduction of about 14%. So you can just see how significant that reduction in your stress hormones is when tapping is added to the equation. I love naps too. And talk therapy is very important, but I like to combine my talk therapy, the modern psychology element of tapping is essentially talk therapy. And then we get to combine it with the physical element of working those meridian endpoints, much like you would with acupressure or acupuncture, but no needles, and get just insane benefits and it works so, so fast. I mean, the breakthroughs that you can make with an hour of tapping will blow your mind. If you've never done it before, I highly, highly recommend. So tapping can be a great way. I'm going to record a tapping round for procrastinating and put it on, my social media platforms at Theresa Lear Levine on Instagram. It'll be at IGTV probably. I'll put it on my YouTube and you can do that along with me. It's really difficult to do tapping as part of a podcast just because you need to be able to see what I'm doing, the areas where I'm tapping, follow along with me. But I would love to give that to you to try. So I'll put a link in the show notes and also it'll be on my social media platform. So you should be able to find it pretty easily if you search Theresa Lear Levine procrastinating. And I think that will be a cool way for you to check that out. Did you know, like when you tap, like an hour of tapping, research has shown, and this one blows my mind, but an hour of tapping can actually change 72 different genes in your body. So that's the powerfulness. Like it's insane the amount of change that can happen. And it's part of the reason why as soon as I started tapping, I was like, oh my gosh, I must like be educated in this to the highest extent, help people with this, get it out there in the world in a greater capacity and show people what a difference this can make. Because I think too many people think it's a woo-woo kind of thing that's not actually changing things, but we're changing genes. We're lowering cortisol. It's all science. Woo-woo is like icing on the cake. It's just fun to get into the deeper side of it too, which I love to do. But I do that in a way that's also completely backed by science and so effective and results oriented. Like I'm digressing here, but anyway, it's super helpful for procrastination. Okay. So try it if you're procrastinating on something. And, the other thing before I wrap this up that I want to talk about is when we procrastinate things, especially from the position of being a female entrepreneur and a parent, maybe you are just beginning your business, or maybe you're looking to take your business to the next level. And the tasks and things you're procrastinating on feel almost frivolous. So, hey, let's say maybe you wanted to start your own podcast, but it's not going to actually do anything from the very beginning to change your business or your finances or your advertising abilities or anything else from the get-go. Like a lot of things, when we start them, the rewards and the growth happen later. So that task might feel frivolous. It might feel like you shouldn't do it because it'll be taking time away from your kids or your family or the tasks that are actually moving the needle for you currently. And so you don't feel justified in doing it. And then you procrastinate. But what you need to realize is that in order for anything to grow from that, that seed idea into the flesh and blood reality of being something amazing, it's going to take your time and it's going to take your nurturing and it's going to take your effort. And it was no different when you decided to have kids and you had to go through that long period of pregnancy and all of the challenges that come with that before you actually got to hold that amazing baby in your arms and begin and continue the process of nurturing it further too. So all good things are going to take our time and effort. And if you have a wonderful idea and you need to bring it to life, you're going to need to give it a little bit of time. And you're going to need to have a big reason why and be able to hold strong to your belief about it. And EFT is really helpful there as well. So just want to make sure that I have covered everything I wanted today. And there's so much. I could talk about procrastination all day, but I would probably just be procrastinating from the other things I need to do. So, and you would be too if you stayed here and listened to it all day. So get to work, go accomplish something amazing, and chunk down the big tasks. Get a good clear list laid out, and make yourself time, because I know I sometimes procrastinate by making lists too complicated. Do you ever do that? So I have a deal now with myself where I'll give myself 20 minutes, but I set a timer. I'm like, that's all the time that I have to lay out my to-do list, my schedule for the next week, that kind of thing, and just get it out there. And then I need to actually start doing the things instead of just dreaming about doing the things, planning about doing the things. Need to do the things. So, I just want you to remember today that everyone procrastinates, but not everyone is a procrastinator. Don't identify yourself that way. It's not helpful. It doesn't serve you, and it doesn't help to get you resolution or fix the issue. Go get them, guys. Thanks for being here. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.